we are hopefully going to be able to build these webinars again. As you remember last time, I had a situation where we had like 500 people trying to log in, and what happened was, the servers crashed, and it took me a while really to find something, that's going to work. And I tested everything, and I found that this YouTube kind of, live is really the best way how to do it. Basically, what I decided then to do is to kind of, set up a little like, a whole kind of, webcasting setup. So I'm still getting, in grip with it. On top of everything, there's fires in Los Angeles today. And the problem with that was that they're very close to my office. So I decided that I was going to stay at home and basically do, this presentation from home. So I guess, we're going to be able to get through it. So let's see first who has joined the webinar. We have a Davide from Switzerland. Okay, guys, Vilan said the audio is good. The Vilan is good. I know. Then let's see, Tegan, Jens, Tiago, Sarai, Ivana is here. She's always checking me, of course, and helping out with things. We have a Nico, Vanya, very good to see you, Vanya. And let's see who else is here. Carl said, put a lot on the sound. All right, I get it. All right. Jens from Berlin. Okay, who else we got? Alisa from Michigan. Very good. And Mario, I think that Mario is from Cyprus, isn't it? Okay. So we got like people are joining in. Matt from Burbank, and Jason from LA, and Brand from Canada, and Michael from Prague, and Benjamin from Salt Lake City. I mean, I love color grading. It's just, and someone from Wellington. Oh my God, amazing. It's just so good, And Cedric, you went to Switzerland, you left New York. Oh my God. And Mario from Vancouver. I love it. There's Michal from Prague. Amazing. You see, this is what I really love about color grading, and actually now with this whole webcasting and everything, we can actually really make it work. All right. Without further ado, let's start a little bit. I can see that we're like already, quite a few people on the thing. We have 100 something connected. So I think, this is okay. Let's start a little bit with a few announcements. Okay, so the first announcement is to do with our classes that are coming up in November in New York. So basically, we're going to be in New York for most of the November. So first, we have a color science masterclass. Maybe I need to explain what it is. So basically, remember, we used to do color managed workflow class. So what I did now is I have created Color Science Masterclass, where we basically taking this color managed workflow a step further. So basically what you do is you take first a course, an online course called Fundamentals of Digital Color Processing, which covers a lot of things like what we used to cover in a first course. So that way, that leaves us more time to specialize more into color science, hardcore matching, and really stuff you need to do, like, that goes beyond just, standard grading. So that was something that people were asking all the time, and there was absolutely no resource or something to learn anywhere. And with us creating an online course called Fundamentals of Digital Color Processing, we were able to expand this course. It's a great course. Get in touch if you want to, get more offers about that. The next one, we have a HDR color grading, which I believe is sold out. Maybe we have one more space left. It's very popular, especially in New York, because there is a lot of HDR work going on. And then we have another great announcement, which is that we have started in conjunction with Dolby to train Dolby Vision mastering. So this is one-day course, purely just Dolby Vision mastering, nothing else. And that is a very good course. You get also certified for it. And, it's a perfect if you guys need to go and get on a Netflix job. or Disney job, or Fox job, or Warner Brothers job, or now Apple, streaming job as well. So they're all requiring Dolby Vision. And then we have a feature film masterclass and commercial masterclasses that are great, like, mid-level, classes that are, always popular. So if you're not necessarily straight away on the level that you want to go to HDR grading and Dolby Vision, this is course for you. Both feature film and commercials are probably one of the most popular courses that people are taking all the time. Another thing I want to just mention is that we do have now an online course. I have finally, after years, managed to sit down and to basically create an online course where I've put together all of that knowledge, about color processing in a single course. Actually, what it is this, I every time I would want to employ somebody, I would really want them to learn all the fundamentals so that they can really grow and learn better. And I figured that if I teach them all the classic stuff, that you need to know about the color processing, they would be able to progress much better and understand what's happening. And this course is really made for that. We have a great response from companies who are, booking these courses for their employees. We're talking to a few universities as well who want to take this course. So we hope it's going to become a little bit of a standard for fundamentals of digital color processing training, so that, we can actually get universities and companies to unite on the same curriculum. I have a special announcement that everybody's getting 10% discount courtesy of Ivana. So basically, here are your codes, CT member 10 and GS, whatever, GS, try to remember it. If you don't, just email us and we're going to give you these codes again. Because we just, the fact that you're joining in these webinars, and I think it's always, good to get, a little bit discount if you can. So thank you, Ivana, for organizing this. I really appreciate that. Okay, now let's move to the official process. So, I have been very busy this month, going back into the film. And maybe some of you have also noticed that, we had a very interesting a meetup last week where we had Matt Tomlinson, who worked on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And also we had Josh Pines from Technicolor, who was one of the first and best known color scientists in the world, to talk about film. And, on stage and off stage, we spent a very interesting time, discussing this process. So I also wanted to kind of bring you a little bit closer to a science of subtractive versus additive, so basically that we see that I have managed to create a little emulation in DaVinci. We're going to talk about the halation process. Some people really love it, and I've been asked by several DPs to kind of, create a halation. I want to show you how I'm doing that. There was a great thread of Livcom again as well that I'm, where I kind of took the ideas from as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about negative profiling. Very important is proper film stock emulation needs both negative and print emulation. So we're going to talk about that. And then I'm going to mention a little bit the film curves of HDR curves, something that occurred to me that's very interesting that we're able to do now with HDR and how we can analyze the curves. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Colourlab. So just basically what we are doing, what's new, and so on. All right, so now let's start, with the first one, and basically I'm gonna talk a little bit about, the additive color. Okay, so here is, DaVinci Resolve, and I'm just gonna go and switch off these clips, and then I'm just gonna go and switch off this gallery so that we have a little bit more space. Okay, what you see here is actually a node tree that I've built in order to emulate the like a additive and subtractive process, or actually subtractive process in this case. So what is actually really happening with film, we have to understand is this, that film does not work like, normal digital RGB. What's really happening with film is that film is actually using cyan, magenta, and yellow layers. And these layers are basically, working slightly different, in terms of color. So what happens is when you combine all those three layers together, this is how you get black, basically. So it goes in the opposite way, you know. While additive color, when we combine primary colors together, we get white. In subtractive colors, you know, it works the opposite way. So it's like, you know, so what I did now here is I basically created like a little kind of, you know, mathematical operation. And this is usually how I prototype. Before I decide to put something into like a Colourlab, I usually like to kind of have it as a node tree where I can experiment and quickly see the result. So what we got here is a shot, you know, that just, you know, at the end I have put like a little, like a, you know, a lot, you know. So what I got here is really what kind of is giving us this particular look. So I got like, you know, red Colourlab with a red camera, and then here I have an F contrast, and then I'm using a Fuji Vivid 500 as a profile. So, but all of that is actually happening at the end. You know, what I've created here is basically a process that splits color, RGB, into CMYK, and actually then instead of adding, we are subtracting. And it's interesting, actually, you can force DaVinci to do that. Now, what is interesting effect with that? So have a look. So here, this is like a C, M and Y, so cyan, magenta, and yellow channels. So what's happening is if I now start changing this channel, I'm getting a very interesting result. So look, if I increase, you know, I'm getting actually a cyan in, and look how beautiful this looks straight away. This is exactly kind of this effect, you know, that I really loved about film, you know, that you actually kind of get, you know, color also in shadows, that you get like, you know, and actually it's to do with this subtractive processing. All this effect of being able to see color inside the shadow, inside everything is primarily to do with the fact that we actually can affect layers, like, you know, just separately, but in a like a subtractive process. So look, if I kind of, you know, now increase, you know, cyan, I can get a beautiful result. And look how now suddenly the skin tones also work very, very well. Then I have here a magenta. So the magenta is now going to work like the same way. So look, if I can just a little bit magenta, or I can, you know, if I can take some of that magenta out. So you see, if I'm just tweaking a little bit this channel, I get a great, great result. Another thing I can do here is I can also do yellow. So look, I can now just make it a little bit. And this is amazing. Like, it's such a great experience really to work like this, because, you know, so far we always used to work with red, green, and blue. And suddenly, like, you know, I can totally work, you know, with colors, you know, that I didn't have, you know, before, and they behave in slightly different way. Especially what I like doing is like, I like to kind of, you know, apply little curves. So let's say like I want to kind of just apply a little curve to this, you know, like a yellow channel. Look, and now suddenly I get this kind of incredibly interesting results. Like, you know, so look, I can now go and apply a little bit cyan here, and then I can basically warm up my highlight here. So basically, it's an incredibly powerful way of working, you know, as you would agree. It's kind of going to give us another level of kind of, you know, creativity, especially when it comes to creating interesting, you know, kind of film-based emulations that are not always just put a lot. I'm kind of a little bit bored with just putting a film stock emulation slots and getting always the same look. So this is just going to be great. At the moment, as you can see, this tree is quite complicated, but I'm going to put it as a code, as like a plugin into Colourlab, and you guys are just going to have basically like going to be able to get these 3 dials and be able to dial, you know, like as if you're working in a subtractive color space, which I think is going to give you a great amount of flexibility. Okay, moving on to the next subject. Let me see, what did we say? It's the next one. It is the magic of film, and it's a film halation. Okay, fantastic. All right, let's see a little bit, you know, how the film halation works. So here I have, you know, actually really, like, you know, I've been trying to do this halation a lot, you know, and you know, it was always a little bit difficult, you know, how to figure it out properly. So this is a great beginning, and you know, I am actually going to use this approach to create a halation effect in a plugin as well, but I want to give you this note because it's very easy to replicate and you can start working on it straight away. You know, potentially what we want to do is we want to integrate a little bit of edge detection into it, and you know, try to see whether, you know, some of that subtractive color science is going to help. But I think before we walk into it, let's kind of start, you know, from the beginning again. So let me show you what I did here. So first, I want to like kind of switch off these nodes so that you can see basically what's happening. So first I have here a primary. Okay, so this is like just a kind of, you know, a primary, and what I did on that primary, I have just reduced a little bit, you know, the highlight, you know, it's kind of just an input node. Okay, so you first, you know, just have like a node that you can adjust the exposure and settings. The second node, what I did was I have used this DaVinci color space transform, and I have made it linear. So this was a shot that was shot with red log film. And then what I did now is I have taken the input gamma, okay, and I have made it input gamma red log film, and output gamma I have made linear. I made no changes, you know, to gamut. So input color space and output color space stay the same. So effectively what I did is I have just turned this image into linear. Okay. Then I opened a new node here, and what I did with this new node is I have created a curve, and as you can see, this curve looks like, you know, really funny. So what I did is I have pulled, you know, this highlight all the way down. So see, this is, you know, the kind of, you know, your standard curve, right? So what I did now is I have just pulled it down all the way until it's like, you know, completely at zero, right? And then I have just left like a little bit of this kind of, you know, highlight here. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to isolate, you know, that kind of very bright parts of the image, and you know, by making it linear, it's much easier to do so. And this is like, you know, that I saw on LiveGam again. I was like, oh my god, now finally, like, you know, we can really extract just the top highlights. Okay, then I created another layer node. Okay, so this is a layer node. I've applied absolutely nothing here. This is just the same linear image, but here I have used the composite mode called add. So I have basically added now these two signals. So I have added the highlight and I have added the normal linear mode. Here, by the way, if you see what I did is also I have pushed it a little bit into orange. You know, this is the kind of halation, has got a little bit of a reddish effect. And another thing I did on this node is I have added some blur. And this blur is really how much you want, you know, this kind of halo effect to work. Okay. And then I applied another node. And in this node, I said, hey, go from input gamma linear to my timeline gamma, which is basically my 709 gamma. Okay, so what I did now is when I see that, look, what I'm having here is a fantastic effect. I'm just going to make it very strong. So I go to key output of the node number 2. Okay, and there I'm just going to go and whack it like, you know, all the way to the top. So you see now you can see better, you know, this halation, you know. So look, you know, I have basically just, you know, look at this kind of effect around the highlight here. You see around the lights, you see how I'm getting this kind of, you know, halo effect around it and very, very bright parts, and here as well. So kind of, you know, of course, you know, this is a little bit too much, but you know, what you want to do is you want to kind of apply a little bit more warmth, and then you use your node key to basically then control the output on how strong you want this effect to be. And it's a great way to kind of add that little bit of kind of, you know, that film magic to it. I'm definitely, you know, hoping that this is also gonna come into release of Colourlab, you know, a little bit, a few more controls. I'm gonna kind of, you know, just see how best, you know, we're going to be able to give you this effect. I'm also planning to add, you know, some edge detection, but I'll talk about it a little bit another time, you know. So look, you know, it's a fantastic way of, you know, just being able to get this like a little kind of, you know, really, you know, I always thought, oh, it's a kind of to do with the lens, but it's not lens. It's actually, you know, halation effect really that happens on film that, you know, cinematographers really like. Okay, so that is my little approach, or like what I saw and learned about the halation effect. Okay. Let's see what is next. Next, we're gonna talk about the negative profiling and why is it so important, you know, and also my approach to negative profiling. Okay, so let me see. So negative profiling is a very, very difficult thing because in order to profile a negative, what you really have to do is two things. You know, number one thing is you have to print to negative, which is can be very, very difficult, you know, because, you know, laser printing to negative is a little bit hard to do, and, you know, to, you know, calculate that, it's not so easy. Or you need to kind of photograph or take a shot of like some sort of Macbeth chart or, you know, Chroma Dumont chart or something like that, and then use that as a source. Now, certainly printing is better. But I have never managed to find a company that is actually willing to print to camera negative, you know, like, you know, because they're usually printing to kind of print stock, and their printers are until recently, where I found somebody who's been doing and printing to negative primarily for the archiving method. And you know, so I've decided, oh, this is going to be a great way for me to actually do some profiling. And I'm going to be releasing some new profiles, but I wanted to show you what is the benefit of that. And I'm going to show you this little, like a tree, so that you can see why, you know, you want to actually dig a little bit into the negative profiling as well when you're doing the film stock emulation. Let me go and switch off all these nodes first so that we can start, you know, from the top. Okay, so let's start from the top. Node number one is basically just my primary, you know, that I use normally a little bit offset, you know, in this case, but I'm going to explain to you why I use the offset. So basically, if I switch on this last node, this is where I'm doing the print emulation. So I have said, oh, this is my camera red. I'm using an F3. F3 is a perfect way how to get that contrast curve of print stock. You know, print stock has got a very contrasty feel. And then I'm using the most traditional print stock called the Kodak 2383, you know, can't be more relevant than that. So basically what I do is first I say, okay, you know, let me go and put my kind of traditional print profile. So there it is, my print profile sits on top of my shot. And then I just use a little bit of kind of, you know, offset, you know, to help balance the shot a little bit and just get the exposure right. Okay, so the next thing then I'm going to do is I'm going to go and open a serial node. So basically next serial node is this node here. And what I'm doing in this node is I'm just basically going to apply a desaturation. So I went here and I said, okay, desaturate to 0 because I want to have this layer completely black and white. And then I have applied a layer node. Okay, and basically on this layer node here, first I use this node number 5. Okay, and in this particular node, what I did is I went into my primary bars and I've used these kind of white kind of bars, you see, and I have put them all the way down. So basically I want all 3 of them to be down. So you guys who finished, you know, the commercials and feature film masterclass with me, you know this trick very well. This is just really for the folks that, you know, have not really trained with me yet. You know, it's a basically way how I separate luminance from chrominance, because this is a hack in DaVinci. When you pull the luminance channels down, all you're left with is a chrominance channel. And then when I use as a composite mode add, okay, I get again, you know, image to look exactly like it should. So basically you see this is black and white and there's the color here, but absolutely no change to it. It's just basically separating processing from luminance and chrominance. Okay, and then what I do normally is I right mouse click on this node and I say add serial before. And this is this serial node here. And on this serial, what I do is I put another Colourlab plugin, but very important, I don't select the camera. I leave no selection of camera and I make no contrast. So basically all I'm doing is I'm affecting only the chrominance now. And I have selected a palette option called Kodak. And on Kodak, I'm going to use the actual negative profile I have, which is called Kodak Vision 35219. This profile, is something, that I acquired, from old days, film calibration, and I'm planning to update it a little bit. I think, I'm going to be maybe making a brand new ones as well. So what this does is effectively applies another, like just a color. So what I don't really want to apply like any contrast, because I assume that film negative is like a camera negative, but I want to just give it that color profile. And with that, I'm applying Colourlab on a chrominance channel effectively. And with this chrominance channel, I'm only putting the negative profile for color. And that then combined with print stock here, basically, gives me this fantastic result. And as you can tell, it does really help. It does help a lot. This is really closer to what film really looks like. So effectively what we're doing, we're emulating in two-step. We're applying a film negative emulation, and then we are applying the film positive or print emulation. So basically, and I think it's an absolutely great little trick that you can use, to improve, your film stock emulation even further. Just kind of keep adding negative, but only in the chrominance channel. If it gets a little bit complicated, with guys with setting this up, you're gonna be able to replay this webinar. But if this fails, maybe just gonna have to contact me, and I'm gonna then share with you these DRX nodes so that you can basically rebuild this at home yourself. Okay. What I also wanted to talk to you about today is the film curve versus HDR curve. So let me actually, show you. It's a very interesting discovery I made recently. And what you see here is a typical kind of, film response curve. And basically, you see how this film response curve has got this kind of minimum density. This is where you say, oh, what's the minimum amount of light that we can capture? And then, we have this period, this kind of, space between a minimum density and the threshold. And basically, this is kind of where film usually gives us this characteristic where it's absolutely not linear, and it's never going to be linear either. It's not supposed to be linear. It was actually designed to be like this, funny enough. This is one ththing that Josh Pines, said to us on the last meetup. And I can't wait to actually publish this on our website, all these meetup recordings, but one thing he said, which was very interesting, is that Kodak was never really trying to display reality. It was actually trying to, use psychology to make, images look nice. So how will people like their image more? So it was very interesting. So you see, these curves are not really like technology that we can't, create this linearity. It's actually the way how the film is designed. Okay, and then we have this straight part where everything is linear, so that this is going, and then the shoulder starts, and this is this roll off basically, and then we have one moment which is called maximum density, and with this maximum density comes then basically, things just start completely falling off, rolling off. Now, with a normal kind of, standard dynamic range, we did not have space for this here. This was something that we would basically kind of cut off. We would probably lose some of this definition very early here because we just did not have the dynamic. We needed like a headroom, to begin with. We tried to optimize, this kind of, the straight part. And we didn't have a dynamic range in order to display these subtle kind of differences in the shadow. Now, with HDR, we can perfectly actually recreate this curve. We finally, with HDR, have that density in the shadow that film had. So actually, film stock emulation with HDR is just going to look so much better because technically we're suddenly going to be able to show these values that we never ever had before. And I think this is an incredible little discovery, and also for you to an important kind of lesson. What you should always think is this, how is it possible for me to kind of, make, my HDR look better. How can I make these HDR images look more appealing? Because so far what we've been doing is we've been so focusing to make it brighter and make it we're about now we can just, bring image to a very nice brightness between 100 to 100 nits, and then use the shadow detail to really help our curves of film stock emulation, look so much better. So for the end, I also wanted to give you a couple of, pointers to what's happening with Colourlab. I'm working on it a lot. As you can see, all this research work with film stock is a kind of part of that process. What my plan is that by end of November, we're gonna start sending out first betas. We are adding to Colourlab Look Designer a whole new categories of look. We are adding a whole new film stock emulations to look we're helping, by adjusting, these kind of things like, negative and print emulation that you can do both in the same go. We are also working on a subtractive color science. It's going to be part of it. I am also going to change the Colourlab HDR in a way that's going to be much simpler, and it's going to start working. If you want to work scene referred or display referred, it's also a very important part. So, that you can work both ways. At the moment, I'm using this kind of round tripping method where I'm always going display first, but, we're expanding now for people who want to stay on scene. So that's going to be next one. And also many people have asked me if I could include a calibration LUT for HDR monitors. And this is especially important when you do split monitoring, when you monitor one signal SDR and one HDR, and there are two different monitors and the two different calibration LUTs, but yet you don't have a LUT box. So we're going to include that as well. But now it's the time for you who are using Colourlab already to get in touch with me and to basically let me know of any suggestions or anything you think I should be putting in. I am actually, very keen to make this release of Colourlab, so much better. As I said, it's no actually cost to you guys. You already subscribe to it and you're going to be getting it all for free. But, please help me. If you have any ideas how best I could, make some changes and what you need, how best to do it. So that would be basically a kind of a summary for today. We did very well, actually. It was only 37 minutes. And then let me know when if you have any questions. I'm happy now to stay a little bit on the chat and cover any of your questions. The question is from Carl. Could you describe the different Colourlab plugins you have? I believe there are a few different versions, ACES, HDR, and stuff like this. Yeah, that's true. So basically what I have is, I have a Colourlab Look Designer. So this is this plugin here. And this plugin is used to really, develop the look. So as you can see, I can, manage all the cameras. I can manage the contrast, separately, and I can manage all the profiles separately. So I have all the different camera profiles, so different looks and so on. So this plugin is really for you to kind of be creative. And then if you want to, you can also go and export a LUT, and it's just going to name this LUT exactly whatever you used in that moment. And then, this LUT is going to be compatible. Now, what's also interesting about this is that you can export straight away to HDR screen or straight away for in-camera red. So if you're working with red, you can export these LUTs and load them in red and then use red output, for it. So it's a basically kind of really look design. Then I have a Colourlab HDR. Colourlab HDR is for HDR work. It does translation between SDR and HDR, and also is essential if you're going to be working in parallel. It's using special method of zoning and exposure to help you get your SDR and HDR translations very quickly, because your normal tools really can't do that in a very nice way. And then I have a Colourlab ACES, and Colourlab ACES is basically this Colourlab Look Designer, but for ACES. And effectively, this is how you do all the film stock emulation. Okay. Yes, there is a there is gonna be a session. Actually, I'm gonna put this session live straight away after the meetup or after the webinar, and then basically we're gonna see that. Oh, very good question for Marius. What about lens looks? Marius, I actually have already what we call a lens lab. Okay, and it is going to go live together with our grain lab, but I have deliberately not covered it in this webinar because it's a very large subject. So I think this is going to be one of our next webinars. It's going to be to do with lens and grain. You know, these are like, you know, kind of two extra processing things I do to make this, you know, film emulation work. But I just really felt like, you know, it does deserve like a focus, and we're going to talk really a lot more about it, what it really does, how it does, and what lens do. It's a very fascinating subject. I worked with Abel Sine's lens servicing department on characterizations of lenses, and you know, my developers have managed to build like, you know, an emulation distortions and mapping, which is very interesting. And so I think, you know, we're gonna have a very good result. So stay tuned. Next time I announce webinar, most likely it's going to be about these two subjects. Oh, Nico says, can't wait for the Colourlab updates. Very good. And he wants to have black and white stocks. Wow. Okay. I hear you. They are one of the most difficult ones. You know, I have to tell you, like, you know, these are one of the most difficult ones. Can you use Colourlab looks and Colourlab HDR with the same tree, or can't Colourlab looks be used in HDR? I suppose no. I actually, you know what? You have to use both of them in the same tree, Carl. You have to. You basically build the look, you know, with Colourlab first, and then on the timeline, you know, on your output side here, you know, like let me show you. Like this is really like, you know, where, you know, so you would really put in your timeline HDR. So this is where the HDR would come. So HDR would be really sitting all the way at the end, and it would be controlling your output and translating, you know, whatever it's coming in into the correct HDR format. So you have to actually use it in simultaneously. This here HDR output is only meant for monitoring on set or something like that. So basically what you do is like, okay, I want to create a great Rec 7 and 9 look, but I want to also give the IT or director or, you know, whoever needs a LUT and the same version of LUT in HDR. So this is what this feature is for, but it's not really for HDR grading. You shouldn't really do this because the mapping is not there. So it will mathematically fix it and calculate the value, but it won't necessarily dynamically map what HDR plugin does. Okay. Could you explain the subtracting a bit more, please? How it's set up, etc. Would be awesome. Really curious to know about it. And this is Nico. All right, Nico, let me show you. So basically what it is, Nico, is this, the subtractive tree. Let me show you. All right. So what I'm effectively doing is I am, you know, following a mathematical operation. You know, like there is a mathematical formula that transforms RGB to CMY basically, okay? And then it can work, you know. So what I do is this, you know, here I take my image and I use a RGB splitter. Okay, so here I've separated it. So as you can see, I have now red going to this channel, blue going to this channel, and green going to this channel. Then I am actually blending them with just a plain, like a color output of color. And in my case, I'm using white. And it's just my way how I'm, you know, calculating like a -1, because, you know, white is in digital 1. And when you need to kind of subtract or invert something, you know, you can of course use the invert algorithms as well, but another way how to do it is to say, oh, I subtract from 1. So this is basically what this is doing. So it's 1 white, and then I'm basically subtracting them. You know, here I have a transform, And these transforms are basically like, they're just a mathematical operations that will then get these inverted versions of your RGBs into CMY. So basically, as you can see here, this is now my, cyan. And it does look, actually, if you look at it, completely like film. Look. This is magenta and this is yellow. And if you like to take like a 3-strip process, you would actually be able to see that this is really what negative looks like. Okay. Then I have a simple node here, which I just use for controlling of that. So basically I can then just lift it, right? Or do something like that. So I'm basically just controlling sensitivity of that particular film layer. And then, what I do is then I merge them all 3 back together, okay? And then I'm going the same process, but in reverse, right? So I'm just basically going like, okay, then I'm gonna take my CMY, right? I'm gonna put it, together, and then I'm gonna go and split it, again into, but in this case, this is now still cyan, magenta, and yellow. And then once I've done that, again, with the same trick of inverting, I come back to an RGB again. So when you come here, you basically have back to the RGB. So kind of I'm separating them into negative, layers. So this is really emulating what negative looks like. I adjust it, tweak it, bring it back together, and then we go back to the image. Okay, that I hope. But you know what? We can actually talk about, Amani asks, is Colourlab a plugin for DaVinci? Yes, it's for DaVinci on just go to Colourlab.co and basically do it there. But the way you guys get Colourlab plugin for free if you do the fundamentals class. So whoever does fundamentals class gets $200 plugin for free. And then what is going to be update or upgrade price for Colourlab? There is no upgrade price, Villain. It's this is why we do subscription, so that basically, that's how kind of, much better, I think, business model. We don't charge for you to buy a new plugin. We basically just constantly keep up improving and developing it, through the subscription model. Any plans to do negative, positive profiling for digital cameras, as in profiling, so I can make my Alexa to look as if a show. That is very easy, Carl. Actually, that profiling is very easy. That we can do already today. All you need is just a Macbeth chart, and I could definitely show you how to do that. Maybe that could be one of my future webinars, is to show you that this is what we learn in the color science class. We go and we put up a Macbeth chart and we match, whatever, iPhone to Alexa and GoPro to something, and it's something that we've been doing for a while. And I find it really unfair that when people watch a movie and say, oh, this shot was shot on this camera and that camera, and they match perfectly, and they think like that colorist was really sitting there and matching it using lift, gamma, gain, and curves, and it's absolutely not the case. In most big productions, there is someone like me or another color scientist who's basically calculating these transforms that match perfectly the cameras. This is really what color science course does. It teaches you how to do that. You have some amazing works from Master's for color grading. Are you planning for any online versions for color grading? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We are going to do some more classes, actually, but more than that, what we're going to do is we're going to do like a little, kind of what we call micro degrees. We're going to teach you how to do on-set color. We're going to teach you how to do data management. We're going to teach you how to do ACES. We're going to teach you how to, so these are like a little courses that you can take in kind of, little chunks and learn very specifics. Again, this is very focused on professional industry. What happens is if I'm running post facility and I employ someone new, first I want them to have the fundamentals, and then this person next has to go maybe and work on set. So, okay, there is a course how to do on set and a course how to do data management. Then this person needs to come back and next week make DCPs. All right, there's a little course how to make DCPs. So basically, this is really what we'll be doing. Now, the feature masterclass, it is very difficult to teach online. And the reason why is because there's nothing really beats classroom. When you sit in a classroom with me and I'm grading with you and showing you how really it works. Now, the fundamentals course has got a whole part dedicated to feature film color grading, where we explain the workflow, how it's done, the best way how to do it, but not really the practical part of how we're building the looks and doing the looks. Because I find that this is still best thing to do is to come to a class. And I would always recommend, even if you're relying completely on online, try to find some time to still come and spend some time in a classroom with us. Classroom is the best way of learning. Hey, thanks. Are you making a power grade for Subtractive anytime in the future? Yeah, maybe I will, but the problem is it has this custom LUT, so then this is going to be a little bit of a problem. But I will make it it will be in a plugin, so it will definitely will coming. No plans for Europe at the moment, Marius. And says, hey, do a class in Madrid. No, I won't be able to do a lot of that because, I am kind of, I have a baby, and I don't want to really travel so much. And basically, I want to, I have so much, work here in LA at the moment with all the software and everything we started doing. So I really, you have to guys understand that, it's going to be easier for you to come and spend some time with me in a classroom, or we're going to have to continue working like this. I am going to be in London at some moment. We haven't confirmed. So this is where I'm coming to Europe. And while I love New Zealand, I think, the best way would be to contact Ivana and see, how this would work out. We haven't got any plans at the moment, but, we'll let you know. Alisa, how long will we have for the current discount codes to register for online courses? That's a question for Ivana. I don't know really how long these codes are valid for, but Ivana will reply to this thread. Okay. And now our time is running out. Guys, I would like to basically let you know that I am going to be sending you a little questionnaire, to all of you, probably by the end of the day today, tomorrow. I want to just hear a little bit feedback how this, webinar was. It's the first time we're using this platform. And, we're still learning. As you can tell, I'm not like a professional YouTuber. I'm excited about, what we can do and how we can teach like this. And, that everybody from around the world can dial in. And I'd like to do more of them, but I want you to have the best possible experience. So please help us with that by, replying a little bit to little questionnaire that we'll be sending later on.